It's been 12 years since the release of Duke Nukem Forever, and 25 since Duke Nukem 3D. Browsing through my Steam library a few months back, I saw both games on my list and decided to play through them again just for fun. For as much hate as Forever got, I genuinely enjoyed my time with it. Granted, I didn't wait forever for the game, and compared to its roots with Duke Nukem 3D, it's definitely a more generic shooter than a Duke game. But why is that? Announced in 1997 after the earth-shattering success of Duke Nukem 3D, with its innovative 2.5D gameplay and satirical yet hilarious titular character, Forever would be put through developmental hell and wouldn't actually see the light of day until 2011. Following its release, fans of the Duke Nukem franchise were astounded, outraged, and frustrated. After 14 years of development with back and forth promises of release dates, the game that dropped was not worth the wait. Duke Nukem 3D released April 24th, 1996, to critical and commercial success. Led by Mr. Nukem himself, the game was fresh, exciting, innovative, and just downright fun. Across the board, most reviewers gave the game 5 stars and 90+% scores. Its unique render engine and unusual graphics meant it ran spectacularly on most toaster ovens people were using as GPUs back then, which just provided it further success. But less than a year after its release, everyone agreed on one thing: its graphics were already prehistoric. So, 3D Realms took their fat wallets and shoved it into announcing a sequel, Duke Nukem Forever. The story would revolve around the Duke falling in love with a Russian woman named Ava, but the game itself was meant to take Duke back to his 2D side-scrolling roots. This was quickly canned when the developers at 3D Realms remembered what company they were working for and picked up the Quake 2 engine for use with the newly imagined Duke Nukem Forever. This was announced 1 year and 3 days after 3D's release. April 27th, 1997, the world was introduced to Duke Nukem Forever. Forever was planned to kick off the Duke Nukem franchise, with Scott Miller, 3D Realms co-founder, stating he felt the Duke Nukem franchise would last for decades across many iterations, like James Bond or Mario, wishful thinking at best. In May of 1998 at the E3 gaming convention in Atlanta, Georgia, the first official trailer for Duke Nukem Forever was shown off to the world. The trailer showed off action set pieces not seen in Duke Nukem 3D or any of his side-scroller games. Fans were especially hyped to see Duke fighting aliens on a moving truck along a highway. Critics were impressed, fans were hyped. However, just weeks later, George Broussard, the other co-founder of 3D Realms, announced that Forever would move from the Quake 2 engine to Unreal, a better engine for mapping out these wide open spaces. This, however, required a complete reboot of development. 1 year later, Broussard would make the decision to swap engines again to a newer version of Unreal. It was the year 2000. The world narrowly avoided Y2K, computers didn't attack, and neither did Duke, as Forever was far from ready. An unnamed developer that joined 3D Realms that year commented the current state of Forever was a series of chaotic tech demos, and that people were concerned Broussard had no idea what he wanted Forever to look like when it was actually done. In December 2000, Take-Two Interactive purchased the rights to publish Forever, aiming for a finalized 2001 release. At the 2001 E3 convention, another new trailer for Forever was shown off to very positive responses. Behind the scenes, however, Broussard was still unhappy. With no clear vision in mind, development continued at a staggered and hazy pace, and in 2003, the Forever development team only had 18 people working full-time. In 2006, Broussard told a journalist that the development team had f***ed up, and Forever had to be completely rebuilt once again, which led to half the team resigning, dropping the game's total dev team to just 9 employees. In 2007, 10 years after the initial announcement of Forever, and after at least 3 complete restarts of the project, 3D Realms brought Raphael Van Lierop into the team as a creative director. Van Lierop liked what he saw at the time, and believed the game could be ready within 12 months. but Broussard once again disagreed. Finally, in 2009, disaster struck. The development team had accumulated 35 total staff working on this fourth iteration of the title by now, but funds were dwindling. Co-founders Miller and Broussard requested an additional funding of $6 million from Take-Two to finish Forever, but the publishing company refused. Left with no choice, Miller and Broussard came to the decision to cease production on Forever and completely lay off the 3D Realms development team. Forever was dead. Then, September 2010, Gearbox Software, developers of Borderlands, Brothers in Arms, several Half-Life games, Halo 1, and much more, bought the Duke Nukem IP from 3D Realms to breathe fresh life into the series and finally finish Forever. Gearbox brought back several members from the 3D Realms team, but specifically barred Broussard. Then, after almost 15 painful years in development hell, on May 24th, 2011, Gearbox did the undoable. Duke Nukem Forever went gold. Forever received the Guinness World Record for longest development of a video game, a record of 14 years and 44 days, though this has since been overtaken by Beyond Good and Evil 2. The final official launch trailer for Forever was released to the world on June 2nd, 2011, with a free demo dropping the day after. Then, to celebrate my 13th birthday of June 9th, 2011, Gearbox and Take-Two officially released Duke Nukem Forever. After 15 years of development, the world was ready for Duke Nukem Forever. The world over was so excited to see what the hell took so long. They were ready for this game to blow their underpants off, and it didn't. These reviewers quoted the game as basic, uninspired, flat, and boring, especially comparing it to the fast-paced berserker shooter of Duke Nukem 3D. Duke Nukem 3D was on par with Doom and Quake, sprinting around arenas at Mark III with a huge arsenal of weapons, blowing things up, finding secrets to expand your explosive power, and just generally causing mayhem. Forever's mayhem was confined to action set pieces where the game would say, "Cool, you've been running around with a pistol for 20 minutes, here's a rocket launcher, kill that big guy, great, now here's your pistol back, piss off." Duke's lines did make me chuckle a few times. His satirical and dry input on everything was enough to make me forcefully exhale through my nose. The writing is all very tongue-in-cheek, so Gearbox did do a good job with writing Duke's character. As far as the actual gameplay goes, it's not terrible. It's as much of a bog-standard first-person shooter as we could expect, with graphics that pretty much sit on par with other titles released around the same time. It's still visually appealing enough, and is definitely a far cry from the prehistoric engine that Duke 3D was released on. Each chapter more or less plays the same way. Duke enters the chapter, kills some aliens, there's a gimmick or a set piece only present in that mission, you get to the end, rinse and repeat. Sometimes there's a boss fight to keep things spicy, but otherwise, that's more or less it. That said, the set pieces are pretty interesting. One of the earlier missions, Duke is shrunk down really small, which essentially turns one map into two, as there are certain parts inaccessible to Tiny Duke that Big Duke can get through, and vice versa. Another chapter tasks you with driving through a desert canyon, filled with jumps and places to stop and kill aliens. The driving mechanics aren't perfect by any means, but they're far from the worst I've ever played. I'm looking at you, Halo. Forever is also relatively challenging on the harder difficulties, but an absolute cakewalk on easy. There's enough variety in aliens and weapons to keep things interesting for most of the playthrough, as enemies will drop their unique weapons alongside pickups placed throughout the world. They did opt for the traditional two-weapon system seen in most modern shooters, which was something fans of the original Duke 3D criticized quite heavily. Overall, was it worth 15 years? Probably not, but putting the length of the development aside, it's not a terrible game. This is probably going to be a hot take, but I feel like it released exactly when it should have. All through development, George Broussard had no idea what the final product would have looked like, so if it had released in 1997 or 2001 or 2006 when he was still in charge, who knows what mishmash of half-baked ideas we would have had to slog through. On a personal note, I enjoyed it. That said, I know if I had been growing up with Duke and I wasn't just a glint in my father's eye when Forever was announced, and then I'd waited 15 years for it, I'd be pretty pissed off too. It's a shame we'll never see another Duke Nukem. 15 years of unkept promises, then a very standard shooter that was only Duke because Duke was in it, means the franchise is dead in the water. I'd definitely love to see a new game, but as of 2017, Gearbox has no interest in reviving the franchise. If you made it to the end, feel free to drop a like and tell me what your thoughts on Duke Nukem Forever are. Were you hyped for its release? What did you think of the game when it came out? Thanks for watching, folks. Remember to stay hydrated and be safe. I'll see you next time. Peace.